First 100 days achievements of President Rodrigo Duterte. He restored hope. Duterte demonstrated well that winning war against drugs, instituting cleanliness on major cities, streets, and curtailing ingrained and systemic corruption can be done. He has successfully transitioned himself from a legendary local executive to a possibly iconic leader. The Philippines is an archipelago, a real challenge to any president who wants to push for a high standard of governance. The fact that local execs outside the domain of Luzon are still able to act like members of an orchestra where the maestro, the chief executive, conduct in a harmonic symphony is a beauty to behold. He has broken the divides. When you hear from the people in the northern tribe calling the president their tatay, it symbolizes the breaking down of ethnic walls that permeate in the Filipino consciousness for a very long time. Duterte's manner of concern, especially for the wretched, captures the very fabric of every Filipino's paternal affinity, and just like a taxi driver in Davao who never lost hope when asked if he's so worried his house was just burnt down in the fire and still managed to say, "The mayor is there." Likewise, the Filipinos all over the archipelago can feel that if they happen to be oppressed or in a destitute state can tangibly comfort themselves, the president is there. He transposed being the man who can make the impossible possible on a more complex political landscape. True to his Davao's mantra that he can do the seemingly impossible possible, to echo Senator Cayetano's speech inside the Senate Hall, people feel generally safer now, a thing too hard to even entertain in our thoughts before his coming to power. He is making significant inroads in capitalizing his political capital in negotiating with the rebels. The chance of ending conflict is more palpable now than ever when looking at the progress of peace talks between government and the rebels. He has proven persuasively he can operate under the legal framework. If there's anything that is very comforting as a result of the Senate hearing on extrajudicial killings, it is this huge sigh of relief that the president can be just as effective operating under the legal framework, and therefore the intense fear of him using illegal means seems to be unfounded. He has kept the brains of his loyal supporters. Despite his seeming gaps, he is still able to keep the brains that aided him to propagate and disseminate his core messages of governance and policies, many of these in the online world. He is able to keep his critics at bay. Despite the heavy criticism from the media, which can be explained in the Marxian economy of power, he is still able to minimize the damage done by the skewed interpretation of the press on his message and policies. He won the hearts of some crossover fans. The president's new converts that joined the administration's bandwagon include, among others, veteran opinion writer Humubuno Adasa and politically active Professor Contreras, who both issued turnaround messages that the president is doing really well. He awesomely fulfilled many his election campaign promises in just few months. Free irrigation. Executive FOI to discourage corruption. One-stop shop for OFW. 911 for emergency and 8888 for government complaints. Upgrade of military hospitals. Increasing compensation of men in uniform. Stricter implementation in weeding out endo practices, and as a result, the OLE just announced the regularization of 10,000 plus workers. Tanimbala is a thing of the past. Restore the confidence of people towards police authorities. Reduction of crime to about 50%. People feel generally safer now. A successful campaign against drugs, 90% reduction in drug supply, 700,000 plus drug dependents surrendered. Massive assistance to smallholder farmers and fisher folks, farm machinery, fishing boats, etc. Faster release of business permits. Additional sack of rice for poor beneficiaries of poor peas. Metro Manila streets now look relatively clean. Significant reduction of queuing time in applying for government documents and IDs. Largely crippled the notorious Abu Sayyaf group. DAR is now more focused on agrarian implementation, for example, the distribution of the long overdue Hacienda Luisita to the farmers. The immediate repatriation of stranded OFWs in Saudi Arabia. The mishandling of legitimate balikbayan boxes has been stopped. The suspension of mining companies that abuse the environment. Removal of the illegal fishing pens in the Laguna Lake. New buses flying from NAIA to many major hubs in nearby cities. PNP, AFP are now doing the processing for fallen soldiers instead of families. Increased allowance for Olympic delegates. Affluent lifestyle and mockery of justice inside NBP have been stopped. No VIP treatment of government officials at the airports. Faster implementation of infra projects due to 24/7 work cycle. Extended validity of government documents, for example passports, driver's license, etc. Stricter implementation of no age limit to all job seekers. Closure of online gaming. OEC exemption for OFWs returning to the same employer. Curfew hours for minors that resulted in reduction of juvenile crimes. Release of many Abu Sayyaf hostages. End of nightly disturbance as a result of karaoke ban at 10 p.m. Deputation of Badjaus as Bantay Dagat. Conversion of the presidential plane into an air ambulance.